Hello everyone, I'm Dragon Tamer Art, and welcome to today's Speed Paint. It's day 21 of Monster March, and the theme is Minotaur. This is one of the reasons I decided to do Monster March in the first place, so I was really excited when this day came, because it is one of my favorite characters in my story. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Here are the models I'll be using. If you've been seeing my art for a really long time, you might recognize this sculpture as one I made about a year ago. In my story, the Minotaur is one of the longest lived characters. His story starts a millennium before the events of the main story, when the Gorgon Empire was at the height of its power. The Minotaurs were a peaceful people, and the most skilled earth magic users in Glancina, and Medusa, the Gorgon queen, coveted their power. When they refused to teach her, she put them to the sword. The battle was not going well for the Gorgons, so Medusa gave the orders to use the Gorgon-human hybrids to turn the Minotaurs to stone. One Minotaur was traveling the mountains when the battle happened, and he returned to find the stone remains of his people being loaded into carts. The Gorgons were able to overpower and subdue him. Medusa sent him to the arena and promised if he could defeat any opponent he faces, she would free his people. For years, the once peaceful Minotaur slayed countless gladiators and remained undefeated. Guilt would eat away at him because he knew the other gladiators were slaves and prisoners who were promised freedom if they could defeat him. But the guilt for not being there when his people needed him was worse. One day, he met a human named Jason. Jason saw a wound on the Minotaur's leg and offered him a piece of his clothing to stop the bleeding. Confused, the Minotaur would ask why Jason would help free the person who stood in the way of his freedom. Jason simply said that if he were to sit by and watch someone suffer, he would be no better than the Gorgons who enslaved him. The two would start to help each other, Jason patching up the Minotaur's wounds, and the Minotaur protecting him from the other gladiators. Eventually, Jason would ask the Minotaur why he did not have a name of his own. He told Jason that his name did not matter. If people only knew him as the Minotaur, then at least the name of his people would not be forgotten. It would soon become clear that the pair would have to face each other in the arena. When that day came, the Minotaur promised he'd make Jason's end quick and painless. Jason was tossed in a group of other gladiators to fight the Minotaur, but one Gorgon approached Jason and handed him poisoned arrows. The Gorgon had bet a lot of money against the Minotaur, and told Jason he would be freed if he could just kill the Minotaur. In the arena, the Minotaur made quick work of the other gladiators, and stood in front of Jason. Jason tossed the bow and arrows on the ground, and said he would not kill another slave this way, especially one who was trying to save their people. The Minotaur could not bring himself to kill his friend, and called out to Medusa, watching from her throne, saying he had killed enough people, and demanded his people be freed. Medusa said there was no saving his people. They died the moment they turned to stone, and their remains were used to build her palace. This was an effort to break him, so that he might teach her his magic, to ensure his people's culture would not die. He refused, and that night used that magic to free himself and the other gladiators. He and Jason would start a resistance, recruiting the other slaves and even some Gorgons that sympathized with their plight. In the final battle, Medusa would try to give Jason the curse of living stone. This would turn him to stone but keep him alive as a statue for eternity. The Minotaur would take this attack for Jason, giving him the opportunity to defeat Medusa. The Minotaur's own power would hold off the curse for a time, but it would eventually overtake him. The Centaurs would guard over him, because he had helped free them as well. They would find a way to temporarily relieve his curse, but this required blood magic, and a sacrifice of one of their own. The Minotaur told them only to do this if their people faced a threat too great. A millennium later, one of Jason's descendants, James, would ask the centaurs for aid in dethroning the tyrant human king. Though James did not know his lineage, the Minotaur could tell he was one of Jason's descendants, and promised to aid if the centaurs agreed. James would later become the hero king of Glencina, and his youngest son Miguel, alongside the half-Gorgon Medusa, would find a way to finally free him from his curse. He would go on to teach Medusa the ways of his people, ensuring the Minotaurs were never forgotten. With the story done, I'll start to talk about the art portion. The scene itself is when Jason and the Minotaur refuse to kill each other. I chose this because had one killed the other, many events in the main story would never have been able to happen. The armor I made for him is based off real Roman gladiators' armor. I chose this because much of the culture I built up for the Gorgons is based off of Roman culture. I added snake statues because it is a Gorgon arena. In my story, anytime there are stone snake carvings, it was likely made by Gorgons. When I first made the Minotaur character, he did have a tail, but when I made that clay sculpture you showed a while ago, I forgot to add it and didn't realize till after I started painting, so I've just decided to roll with it, and ever since he has not had a tail. To show that the Minotaur's been a gladiator for a long time, I gave his body a lot of scars and even have one of his horns busted off. I normally don't do a lot of shadows for my paintings, but for this one I decided to give it a try. And with that, we have the last Minotaur. I've wanted to paint this scene for a while now, so I'm really glad I got the chance to do so. Tell me what you think and leave your suggestions for more in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and remember, never stop improving.